Now, it's saying it's live, but now on YouTube, you can never tell. So I'll have a quick gander there on the old channel. Check it's up and live and running. Oh, looks like it is. Right, we're in business. What is the crack, folks? Apologies for not giving more notification or any notification at all. There's no notification at the moment. I shall listen to the audio so it's working. Is it working with a bit of an echo? No, we've got it going. We're very soon. Mouse is here. What's the crack? Good morning. How is life down under? We've a few battle mechs here up on the table. Now, I very recently, I can't even bleed and talk. I very recently moved to an apartment, and I packed everything up. Of course, the old cup of tea to keep us going. Slurp sound effects added in as well. I need to put me mug of tea somewhere where I'm not going to dip the paintbrush in, because I've done that before. I've dipped biscuits into paint water and gone to eat them and realised with abject horror that I'd dipped the biscuit in paint water instead of the cup of tea. But you live and you learn. It's part of the risk of the hobby, the trials and tribulations of being a tabletop wargamer. Lorcan's here. What's the crack, Lorcan? He says it's fucking cold at 4:30 in the morning, I'd say so. Dan Billman's here. I was at a street party for much of the day today. It was a lot of fun. Ah, yes, Lorcan. I remember you were talking to one of your work colleagues about it, or previous work colleague, about street parties and whatnot. We'd been going for lunch, myself and Lorcan, during the week, as I had jury duty, being the upstanding citizen that I am. It was the first time I was ever in court. It's a pretty cool looking building, actually. You can tell I'm too into Battletech when I'm in like a civic building, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, this would be a great piece of Battletech terrain. And then wondering how many levels tall it would be. So I found that quite amusing. What I'm trying to do today is find the paints I was using for this unit here. So I had made up a unit for a campaign to play with one of the guys in the local club. He's moving to a different county now, but I actually want to still finish painting him off. So it's just sort of like a military green. I think the Cyclops was the furthest I got done. The whole idea with the unit was that I made them so that they'd be easily accessed on the periphery. So they're all ubiquitous. They're all like common mechs, apart from, I think, the Centurion, and the Cyclops is the commander's mech. But it's, Cyclops isn't exactly the Mae West. But the variant I was going for isn't the one with the AC-20. It's the one with the LRM launchers, more of a support role and a bit, actually some armor in it. But I digress. On to the point at hand. I'm trying to find the paint that I had for these guys. Now, I'm not sure if it's this one or if it was an AK. I think it was an AK paint, but I can't find it. I still haven't managed to unpack all my hobby stuff. So we're going to throw a bit of green onto one of these 3D printed hunchbacks that Eric gave to me a good while back. And we'll see how that green looks and go from there. Is anybody else getting some paint on? Look at the same. Mark and I have had the idea of doing up a Dublin for Battletech game, either maps or scale trains, so we should totally 3D print up some landmarks. Oh, definitely, yeah. Like, I reckon Trinity College would actually be like a good battle arena, because it's got open spaces, but it's pretty much like a giant compound, so it's walled and stuff. I mean, you could do the same with Phoenix Park. There's actually a good bit of variation. The ports, Dublin Port. Yeah, there's a good bit of terrain in Dublin, actually, for such a, small city. It's the capital of Ireland, but in comparison to most other capital cities, it's not exactly massive. I don't think this is the right green. I'm actually using an old phone case just as a palette, because it's plastic on the back. It was a other other box case, and it just like the softer elements of it finally just died on me. I mean, 5 years out of a phone case ain't bad going either, you know. That's pretty good going. It saved me a phone numerous times from being absolutely obliterated. So I would go for Otterbox again. It's working on some 28mm British AWI. I'm trying to remember what AWI is. Is that Australian something or other? I can't think at the moment. Because there was British Expeditionary Force BEF, wasn't it? That was another one. I'm good at history in broad strokes, but not details. That is my downfall. When did Army Painter change their brushes from the triangles? I mean, it's been a long time since I last bought them, but I got some Army Painter brushes. But the handles used to be triangles, and I actually quite like them. Yeah, look. So this is like... These are the same brush. So that's Wargamer Monster, or Wargamer Monster brush. But the handles used to be like triangular. I actually quite like them. And they changed them. Unless you can still get them. I don't know. American War of Independence. American War of Independence. Jesus, I was well off the mark there. Where is my dusting brush for dusting said miniatures? Mind you, they shouldn't need much of a dusting. They've been in transport for ages, man. There's still a couple of miniatures I need to get a hold of. Now, I don't think this is the same sort of green, but we'll throw it on and see what it's like. Of that many, like, US olive drabs now. That it's, you know, you could have quite a bit of variation on different forces. Mind you, I suppose, like, there's not just going to be one US olive drab that's universal. I'm sure, like, different pigmentations or different batches or production runs are bound to happen. It's like, we source our paint from this planet. I'm sure there is, like, universal Comstar SLDF green. I actually quite like this 3D print. It's pretty cool. I think it's a bit big in scale. I think this hunchback is it's just a little bit too big. If I was going to print it myself, I'd scale it down just a smidge. Just a teeny weeny bit. Because it is a bit big. Like, if we look at it in comparison to the Shadow Hawk there, like, it's a little bit big. It should be a little bit smaller. I don't have my other hunchbacks to hand to be able to give you a comparison, but we'll have to do that another time. But these guys are 4Ps, so it's the hunchback with all the medium lasers. There's this lance that I play with that consists of like 2 Victors and 2 hunchbacks. And it was just a meme lance. So it was a case of, you know, Urban Lance. So I basically bought 2 Urban Lances, and I just took the Victor and the hunchback from each and made 1 lance out of them, and just for the lols. Just to have like 4 AC-20s in a one force. And like, they're hilarious. They're decent at fighting in urban combat, but they can't hit anything outside of like 9 hexes. So I've played several games with them, and I mean, I think the record is, I think I've played 9 games and they've lost 6 of them. So it's like, it's not exactly the best winning streak, but they're always fun to play though. They're always fun to play. I mean, when you can hit with the AC-20s. But yeah, I went through a really bad streak of not hitting with AC-20s, needing like 4s and 5s to hit. So I took the 2 hunchbacks and made them the 4Ps, some medium lasers. And I didn't realise that the hunchback 4P in Succession Wars era is actually a really good mech. it's surprisingly good. It's a really decent mech, and it's really good at taking out elementals or power armor. Because it's basically like a laser shotgun. You're firing. You can run and fire 7 medium lasers, and you're grand on the old heat curve. I think you can sink 23 heat with the 4P in Succession Wars, just like stock. So if you're firing 7 medium lasers, you're generating like 21 heat, and then if you're on, it's 23. So you're grand. So it's a good mech. Like, it's just the laser shotgun of doom. Lorcan is saying, I feel like the swayback shoulder weapon mount should be shorter compared to the AC20 Taunton version, but I get why the 3D model doesn't do that. I get you. I've always sort of thought that it's a case of maybe having to change out too much of the substructure or too much of the casing. You know, like it's going to be easier to just put in a supporting frame that would normally hold the AC, that, you know, like a mountain rack that holds the medium lasers instead of the AC20. That's how I'd look at it. It's like, hey, we're changing this weapon and we're just putting these guys in. We'll just put a rack in, and then, you know, we'll be able to change it back if we want. Obviously not as easily done as Omni-Mech and stuff where it's just plug and play, but I could still see it being like, you know, there's a rack to hold them in. But yeah, the AC20 definitely takes up way more space. And I don't mind. I don't mind that it's still the same size, but I can understand people wishing for a different profile slightly. But then at the same time, I think it would play on the visuals as well. Like, if you're thinking tactically, like if you're in a 4P, you kind of still want it to look like it's got its AC20 to keep people at bay. You know what I mean? Where some folk wouldn't be as worried about like a lot of medium lasers, even though they should be, because holy Jesus, like, but I could see like the psychological warfare aspect of it. If you kept it the same, you wouldn't be able to differentiate between them that much, and it would be interesting. The reason the non-AC20 versions are called swaybacks is because they look weird and disproportionate. Okay. I only know them as like disco backs, but that's because of, yeah, the laser light show. I mean, realistically, you should have like, I don't know, a disco ball hanging out of it. They're pretty funny. Or an actual laser. It can't be that hard to mount a small. Well, I don't know. I'm sure somebody's done it. I'm sure somebody's actually mounted, like, I suppose like fiber optic cable would be the easiest thing to do. Like, have them coming up two in the arms. Some folk do some really interesting stuff with them. They can get some pretty decent results on conversions. But yeah, no, like, I like the 4P. It's a good make. It's a good crack. I enjoy it. I mean, outside the 9 hexes, you're going to be murderized by whatever's shooting at you. If they stay back, like, it makes sense to stay out of range. Yeah, just stay outside the 9 hexes and you're grand. But I've had a couple of games with them where people have not anticipated the level of firepower that they get. So it's like, if it gets within medium range, if it gets within 6 hexes of you, and usually I give them like a decent gunnery, so I'll give them like gunnery 3 or gunnery 2. So if they get within medium range, they can do a fair chunk of damage. Like they're not gonna. Ideally, they should be working with the Victors. The Victors throw out the AC20, but the problem they tend to have is you're using jump jets to try and go from cover to cover. But if a Victor hits something with an AC20 and opens it up, and then a 4P rocks up and then just goes crit hunting, you know. Ideally, get yourself a gyro hit, do enough damage, put them on their ass. See how it pans out. See, now I'm not too sure. That's a totally different green. Yeah, see, I knew the AK one. So this is the Army Painter. So the Army Painter War Paints the Army Green. So this is Army Green. So we actually, do you know what? We'll do the other one in a different green. Do you know that? We'll try a few different greens. Swayback is an in-universe term, and it's mentioned in the original TRO 2025. Ooh, there you go. We can have that for the Battletech pub quiz. A little tidbit of knowledge there. So we'll leave this one for a little bit, and we'll put another coat on in a second, and we'll try another Army Green. We'll go for... I have model color US olive drab, which is gonna go look different again because this one. So this green's like the AK. It's this series of prints, AK acrylic model colors, but I can't find it. After I move, I can't find it. I actually quite like the AK paints. They're really nice. I like Vallejo paints as well. Army Painter. Army Painter. I don't know. They've burned me a couple of times. Some of their stuff's good, but I wouldn't go down my way to suggest them to people. But that's just my personal taste. Now, unless I've left that paint, see, like I've drawers and drawers of paints now that needed to be moved. Oh damn! There's a shrapnel idea. Trivia quiz. Yeah, why not? Go for it. That sounds like fun. What in-universal knowledge people have acquired. See now, look, this is another Army Green, but you can tell it's totally different. We'll see if I can get away from the old shine. So that's the Army Painter sort of Army Green, and this is model color US olive drab. Now I would have assumed that Army Green would have been sort of American military green, but apparently not. And I've put way too much in this old phone case of a palette. Way too much. It's alright. I'll put it on with an old brush. It's not the end of the world. I had to do my doc of pitch ideas. I better get credit for that. Yeah, so we'll try another Army Green. That other punchback needs another coat or two. But we'll see what the story is coverage wise. Yeah, like, look, that looks totally different, man. This is more of a natural sort of green. Which is interesting, like, because when I was playing with a 40k orcs and putting different colours, skins on them, I didn't go for a typical green colour. I actually went for like a sort of started off with a military base colour and then highlighted up to a very sort of bright colour. And then I used to paint up the knobs with a darker green for the base and use the base colour of the boys for the highlight. And the war boss would be darker again and use like the knobs sort of base colour as the highlight, if you get me. Because like the whole idea like painting the orcs was that in the lore, like the older they get, the thicker their skin is. So the more veteran and bigger like orcs would be darker in hue. But I also wanted the colours to still tie together, so I used darker base colours on like the HQ units and stuff. But then I used the lighter tones from the basic troops, so that it all tied in together. If you get me, like visually, like it wasn't too out of whack, and it seemed to work. I mean, I don't have any orcs to hand at the moment. It's mostly just mechs, and I don't even have all my mechs to hand. I still have a few of them stashed away in storage. And there's one or two that I need to dig up and paint up. But it's all go, go, go at the moment. Been staying busy. Not really been getting much hobby done, but it's more sort of the organisational aspect of the hobby and the community. We have 2 tournaments coming up. There's a tournament in a month in July that I'm going to be running up in Gamers World. So we're going to have the Battletech sort of Dublin regional tournament. And then later in the year, in September, we're going to have the Irish Nationals up in the Maldron Hotel up by Dublin Airport. So we're going to seed some places. So there's going to be regional tournaments this year. I think it's the first time it's happened. Regional tournaments, so Ulster, Munster, Leinster and Connacht are all having their tournaments. We're running the Leinster one. And yeah, it's going to be good crack, man. See how it goes. Could be an absolute doozy. But yeah, it should be good crack. Not run tournaments before, but going to be helping out run one next week. So get a bit of practice in, and by the end of the year I will have either ran or helped run 3 Battletech tournaments. So that's what I'm doing. That's what I've been keeping myself busy, coming up with pairings for our own tournaments, or we're helping run the Battletech night and running the store. It's funny for me at the moment. I do feel like I'm doing nothing, and then I actually sit down and think about what I'm doing, and it's like, yeah, every time I talk to the missus as well, I'm like, I feel like I'm not doing much. And she's like, you're doing loads of stuff. You're always doing something. Which I find funny. Because we've got a fair bit going on, but at the same time, I'm like, but I don't feel like I'm doing much. Well, I suppose I haven't overloaded myself. That's always good. You don't want to get to that stage either. You don't want to overload yourself. So clearly I'm not overloaded if I feel like I'm not doing much, but we've got a fair bit to get going and get doing between orders for the store, getting more stock in, prizes for the tournaments, and just organising the tournaments themselves. It's gonna be interesting. There's Essen later in the year as well, going to Essen. That's happening. I don't think I'm going to get the chance to go to any of the other tournaments around Europe for Battletech. But I'll be endeavouring to do that next year. And who knows, maybe even go to the States. We had Randall come over for a visit. I showed him a bit of Dublin when he was here. And yeah, it'd be good crack to go over to the States, maybe going to, maybe not even just tournaments, but even just go to Gen Con. And like, there's a few people over in the States that I've never met. And if I got the opportunity to meet up with them, it'd be pretty sweet. Meet up with more Battletech players, with the Battletech crew. Some of my old wargaming pals from back in the day. We'll have to see. We have to, you didn't know I had a store. I do have a store, Dan. I set up a Plastic Crack Gaming sum up store. Basically what happened was myself, Lorcan, Mark and Brian, we tend to do like participation games or do intro games for people at like different college cons. And last year when we were, I think it was April last year, I think it was the Minicon, the one out in Minute. Is that the Minicon? I think it's the Minicon. We were doing intro games, and then I was thinking to myself, I'm like, at the time it was actually pretty hard to get a hold of Battletech stuff still. Or there wasn't many retailers selling Battletech stuff. So I was thinking to myself, if we're going to be giving people intro games, and they want to get into the game, we need to kind of have the box sets there and then for folks. You know what I mean? So if you're introducing someone to the game, it's like, here, look, there's the box set. It's no point in introducing someone to a game and then telling them, hey, good luck finding it in the store. So that's kind of what happened, was just the whole, we're giving people the intro games. They want to get into the game, buy the box set. You know what I mean? That's kind of where it went. It's, and yeah, it's fun. I like it. It's a bit of fun. It's basically like a hobby at the moment, more so than anything else. I don't really view it as a business, kind of, even though technically it is. But it serves my retail therapy. I like getting orders in, opening the boxes, seeing what's come, see the new stuff. Usually I keep one for myself, and then the rest moves on to other folk. But I like that about it. I get to open new boxes of stuff when new product come out, and I have to hand it to Catalyst. They've actually had like quite a lot of product coming out over the last year or so, compared to compared to before the last Kickstarter, or since the new miniatures came out. The amount of product is like skyrocketed. It's really good though. Even the print runs for the books. Like originally I wasn't going to sell books, but then people started asking. They wanted the real books and stuff, which makes sense. It makes sense, People are getting into the game. They want to get a hold of the real books. And then some of the more established players were like, hey, any chance of ordering in source books? So then we order in source books and neoprene battle mats. And yeah, pretty much it's a little store, a little online store. I normally set up a stand when we do our gaming nights so people can peruse through stuff. I've done one sort of gaming convention, a college con, and that's about it at the moment. It's just sort of a bit of a learning experience, you know what I mean? A bit of fun, a bit of crack. It's giving out to me. Apparently it's not receiving enough video. And saying it's awesome. Yeah, cheers, man. I need to do Gen Con sometime soon. Yeah, I know the feeling, Orchid, and I want to get my ass over to the States. Orchid was saying even 5 years ago it was like 4 to 6 physical products in a year. I know, man. Like even trying to get a hold of Shattered Fortress was, Jesus, it was a task. Trying to get a hold of the Game of Armored Combat box set. That is a weird looking green. Holy Jesus. What choice of mint would you like? I need to put a second layer on this to give it sort of justice. I'm finding the coverage on the Vallejo, maybe just because I put it on thicker, maybe? I mean, it's not really clogging up detail or anything, but it's going on nicely. So I'm liking the look of it. But I've gotten distracted. We were talking about product. Yeah, like, the difference is like night and day. The amount of Battletech product that's released now. And just the stuff we're seeing, like the plushies and all. Plushies are hilarious. Orca was saying 2017 was 3 physical books. Well, I think 2017 going into 2018 was when I decided that I wasn't happy with 40k anymore. And that I'd always liked Battletech, but I wasn't a massive fan of the older sculpts. So when I saw there was talk of the new miniatures coming out, and my friend Brian was telling me about it because I was over visiting him. I can't remember. We talk about wargaming a lot as well. I was over visiting him, and he was telling me about how they were doing new resculpts, and I think it was the Warhammer was the first sort of trial make, or even before that there was talk of like new resculpts coming and new box sets. And I decided then, I was like, all right, cool. The only thing that was holding me back was previously, because I tried Battletech in like I think 2005 or 2004. I'd gotten some miniatures and I'd gotten a technical readout and some bits and pieces, but then it was just, I wasn't too enamored with the sculpts, and it just wasn't easy to get a hold of. Wasn't easy to get a hold of the miniatures. So when I heard the new box sets were coming out and that you'd actually, the miniatures looked nice, and that you could actually, get a hold of them, that I was like, yeah, cool. I've always liked the rules for this game. I'll get in on it. But yeah, it was really hard initially to sort of get the game of Armored Combat. 2016 was 5. Jesus. My God, yeah. How things have changed. But yeah, once the new box sets were coming out, it was just a case of getting a hold of them. They were on smaller production runs in the beginning. So they'd sell out fast. So you'd have to be sort of keeping your eye on a few retailers. I used to order them in from British retailers back then because it was before Brexit. So we'd order them in from British retailers. There was a few really nice independent stores that I used to like to support as well, that I used to buy the books from them. Like some of the older books, they'd have stock of older books. I mean, that all stopped now since Brexit. I just stopped buying the stuff in. Didn't want to be hit with customs charges. Which is a pity. I think Spirit Games, was it Spirit Games? I used to buy stuff from Spirit Games, yeah. They were pretty cool. There was a few bits and pieces I managed to get from them. New as well, yeah. But yeah, trying to get a hold of product was even problematic. Like the beginner box set, you just could not get a hold of it. The Game of Armored Combat as well was really hard to get a copy of. So like for the first couple of years, I had like 12 mechs. I literally had like the beginner box set back when it was the Griffin and the Wolverine, the Game of Armored Combat, and then I had 2 mechs donated to me. So I had like a Charger had been donated and a Crusader, and I still have them. They were the Charger was nice. The Charger was a decent sculpt. The plastic, the previous sort of iterations of plastics that were decent sculpts, but the Crusader was one of those, holy Jesus, horrendous plastics that are sort of like, they were akin to, like, if you buy bags of plastic soldiers, that sort of soft detail, that sort of quality, with the giant mold lines on them, and they're just green. You know what I mean? Like, ye cheapo bag of toy soldiers that you used to play in the garden when you were a kid. Like, they were that sort of quality. They were bleeding shocking, is what they were. Yeah. So I had one of them. Like, the detail's so soft, it's like you're trying to paint detail on, which I found funny. But yeah, so that was literally, they were the first sort of 12 mechs. And I used to run the Charger as a Charger 1A1, 5 small lasers, just running in there, and laugh when it would actually hit with all 5 small lasers and do 15 points of damage, because nobody bothers to look at it. When there's other mechs to be shooting at, nobody bothers with the Charger, because there's always bigger fish to fry. The third edition plastic minis paint just flaked off them if you didn't wash them. I think it was the third ed ones. Because I had looked at buying that box set when it came out originally. But then I had been told about the lack of quality. Apparently people loved that you got loads of miniatures in the box set, but it was more a quantity rather than a quality box set. And I wasn't interested. I didn't want to be buying a box set with miniatures that were just like pants. So I remember seeing that box set on the shelf, and I just didn't buy it. I was advised not to buy it at the time by a friend because the quality was wanting, shall we say. It was not the Mae West. This green's coverage isn't great at all, is it? I don't know. I'm finding the Vallejo covers a lot better. What were you getting there? This is reminding me of sort of the Starship Troopers, I think. The big mobile suits, that sort of green. Is that? I don't even know if that's the right sort of green, but that's the sort of vibe I'm getting off of it. Whereas this is giving me more, I don't know, military green. It looks like it should be part of a camo scheme. But there is a bit of a difference. We've all the greens. So that one's army green. Off camera, I've like jade greens and fell greens. I was starting to paint up a Turkina that I was trying to do it up in the Turkina Kashek, I think it is, the colour scheme. Which I think are like bodyguards. So I need to finish that one up as well. But I need to find the miniature again first so I can actually start painting it. So there's a lot of organising to be done. There's a lot of miniatures that need to be dug out and a lot of paints that need to be found again to get the old ball rolling. But get the ball rolling, I will indeed. I think we'll throw a bit more paint on this one. I mean, the coverage is pretty good. I don't really need to be lashing much on here, you know what I mean? Trying to describe the difference in colour. This is sort of like a more forest type of green, and this is, I don't even know, it's like a minty green. It's lighter in tone. But yeah, I need to find me AK green for these guys. But I can just put a wash on the ones that have the like, so we'll throw a wash on him. I like using... When I was doing the orcs with the GW colours, I was doing Etonian camo shade. But I find dark green's a really good wash as well. So it's the same sort of tone as Etonian camo shade, but it's not as expensive, and I like it. And I actually use this quite a lot for a lot of me military greens. Like if I'm giving the miniatures a wash, I give them the dark green, sort of model wash green. For green vehicles, apparently, or green mechs in this case. So when I give him that dude, that Centurion there, an L wash, I'll be giving him a whack at that. Won't know himself. I have 2 Urban mechs sitting up there, and I am tempted to do 2 of them up in military green. Might do them in this Vallejo green because I've got a fair amount of it here on the old palette. I might do that. I might just leave this guy for a while, let him dry up. And I suppose if I do them in different tones of green, it helps differentiate them on the tabletop as well. Now that I think about it, it's not bad going, yeah. Instead of writing Hunchback 1 and Hunchback 2. To Irby's way! Now, when I was on with the Modelling for Advantage, lads, originally, my plan with these was to do speed paints. Ooh, do you know what we could do? We could be really crafty here. So what I'll do is I have 2 of them. Because, you know, double trouble. So what I'll actually do is I'm going to do one of these in that sort of US olive drab that we have on the palette here. But the other one, I'm actually going to use a speed paint on it. Because this is why I did them up in this sort of ghost grey. It's like black and then dry brushed white or whatever. I've picked out the metal. I can redo the metal if I need to. I've picked out most of the metal detail I've wanted to pick out. But I can redo it. It's not going to be the end of the world. Normally I do the base colour first and go from there. But yeah, I'll do this one with the Vallejo. And then I'll do the other one with the speed paint. And that way we can have another green as an example. Because there is an army green. Oh Jesus, this paintbrush has seen better days, I believe. But it's all about the army colours. But yeah, looking forward to the Kickstarter. Has anybody else pledged into it? No, Lorcan has. What about yourself, Dan? Have you gotten in on it? Anybody else gotten in onto the old Kickstarter? I've yet to close out my pledge. There's a few bits and pieces I've been looking at. I am tempted to get the dropships. I'm not too sure if they're going to be Kickstarter exclusive stuff, but it'd be nice to get some map scale dropships. They'd be pretty cool. Miniature scale, well, you know, somewhere down the line we'll get some of that. But not at the moment. Don't have the space. Space is definitely the priority when it comes to gaming. But it would be nice to see what way they get painted up. I think a couple of guys in the local sort of club, they're getting them as well. Yeah, it'd be cool. We might start seeing more scenarios with dropships in them. The dropships aren't Kickstarter exclusive. They'll be strolled through Ironwind Metals. Oh. Ironwind Metals, eh? So it'll be a pain in the ass to get a hold of. Very Silent Mouse said he got a battalion. Woo! Nice. I can't remember the name of the level, but it's like 270 or something like that. Was the level I backed at. But I honestly don't know what to pick. Because I'm quite happy to wait until the vehicles come out. It's mostly salvage boxes I'd be interested in for the bit of crack for, you know, this year's Advent salvage box calendar. Advent calendar salvage box. I did spread the word. I did sort of suggest Advent calendar salvage box. I'll be saying it to people again when I see them in October. Make it happen. Make it a thing. It would be awesome. I think people would love that. I think if we got an actual like Advent calendar salvage box, an actual Battletech one, I think people would love them, man. I think it'd be great crack. But yeah, 24 videos on Christmas. That'll be looking forward to it. Be good fun. Maybe change up the format of the videos a bit. But I suppose you can't go too super into detail about each mech that you get. What with making the videos on the day, you know. Which is crazy when you think about it logistically, but it's fun. You get genuine sort of reactions out of people then, you know. But it's a good idea. But I should not be talking about Christmas in June. Oh, he's getting a battalion so far. See, this is the thing for me. I like the add-ons. There's a couple of things in the add-ons, so I'm looking at the dropships. But if they're gonna be true Ironwind Metals, I don't know. I might hold off then. But there's what is it? It's not the Legends book. There's a book that like there's a limited edition version, and it's like $200 US. And I'm like, oh, I mean, it looks like it's gonna be nice, but it's like 200 quid on a book that's like limited edition. I think my problem is that I'm like hesitant because I've been burned with the likes of Games Workshop so much on limited edition books. That I'm very hesitant. I'm like, that's a lot of money on a book. You know what I mean? Like on one book. But it might look really nice. So it's weighing up my options more so than anything else in that regard. They're replacing the current resin map scale drop ship line. Yeah, cool. It's about time. Far Clans all in here, sir, for me. Good man. That's what I like to hear. If I can afford it, I will participate. Oh, nice. Yeah, that'd be sweet. Current Regiment, getting one of the each force pack and then one additional. Haven't decided on what, if any of my salvage boxes will be. I'd like to get some vehicle ones. That'd be cool. And in Somerset Strikers, a pair of curated dice, a curated dice tray, and the Fancy Universe book. And the BFM, the Universe book. Yeah, that's the one. Hey, Warlock. The Universe book. I mean, like, it's looking like it's gonna be really nice. But I'm like, $200, man. Holy Jesus. It's like you can get a lot of miniatures for that. But I just need to weigh it up. It's like, how much do I want? How much do I want that book? Do I want it $200 much, or you know? Like, it's gonna be nice, but it's gonna be like 200 quid nice, because that's pretty much like €200. It might as well be 200. Now, €200 on a book. I don't think I've ever spent. Whoops. I don't think I've ever spent €200 on one book. Like, ever. So I'm like, ooh. I'm a tad bit hesitant. Which is understandable. But then at the same time, you don't want to see your mate's copy of it and then you're kicking yourself, you know. And then if you want to get a copy of it, then people will be charging you like, Jesus, God knows how much. An arm and a leg. Like, I would have liked to get me hands on the Marauder, the Destiny scale Marauder. Which is another reason why I'd like to go to Gen Con. Would be like, oh, I'll be bringing a spare suitcase just to buy Battletech stuff, you know, Gen Con exclusive stuff or whatever. Get to the booth, get there early, get buying, or even help out if they need help or whatever. That'd be cool. Cool, man. All the military green. We did a tournament and I brought a Banshee, and I had honestly contemplated bringing, we'd done like a little tournament as a 1 year anniversary for our gaming club back in April. And I had seriously contemplated bringing the Urban Mech with the hardened armor and the snub-nosed PPC. Like, I had seriously contemplated bringing it. And I didn't in the end. And I regret it. So next time we're doing like an event tournament like that, I'm bringing the Orby, man. I'm bringing it. It's happening. There'll be no stopping me. Because it's such a nice sculpt. How could you not like it? Look at it. It's kind of like chibi-esque. It's brilliant. Love it. I'd bring over the Leo plushie to screen, but Jesus Christ, it's in plastic packaging and that would require moving cameras and a lot of faffing about. But next time. Do you know what I actually thought would be hilarious? So see the way they're doing like the plushie mechs? If someone got like stands for the plushie mechs, like if you ever see like the Gundam mechs where they have like a clear acrylic stand that has like a claw, sort of like a bracket that holds the Gundam suit. If we had like clear acrylic stands to hold the plushie mix, I mean, it would be hilarious if there was like a plushie tech game held on in the convention, like where you're just watching like plushie teddy bear mechs killing each other. I mean, that just sounds like hilarious to me. It has to be done. Or can I say to be a regular edition of the Universe book with the same text for $50? Yeah, but like I'd be able to get that myself. Like, never played Battletech. I did not pledge. Cool looking game though, and I enjoy listening to your enthusiasm about the game. Good stuff. Oh, cheers, Dan. Yeah, I've always liked the rule set, but as I've said many times before, the thing that stopped me from actually getting into the game was the miniatures were naff. They were old and outdated, and even for old and outdated miniatures, some of them were, sweet Jesus, like they weren't just hit with the old ugly stick, they were battered with the bleeding thing. Holy Christ. But then, there's going to be pangs of nostalgia for folk, they're going to be like, oh, that ugly stalker miniature, that was the first miniature I bought back when I was 10, you know what I mean? So people are going to love them. People are always going to love those old miniatures. And there's a couple that I liked myself. There's a couple of sculpts that I liked. I liked I thought the Hunchback was a decent one. I actually like the old crab. That's sort of the armor on its armored sort of prow, like all the rectangles. The sculpt, I actually quite like the sculpt. The king crab sculpt, not a fan of. But the normal crab, I actually quite liked the look of it. I thought it looked pretty cool. But they're all sort of in proportion with themselves these days now as well. So that's another plus. Just making sure I've gotten any of the nooks and crannies in white. What can I say? He's upgrading the free copy of Legends 2 to the LE version. Okay. Book does look sexy. CGL is not GW, and you should get it because it will be worth it, unlike anything GW. That is a fair point. They do retain their value. Like, I think the last time I bought a limited edition book was, Jesus, when was it? It was the Orc Codex, the 7th edition Orc Codex, and I bought it for £100. And like they ruined it. They did, like, so it was supposed to be like a limited print run, and they forgot to add in the print run numbers. So they posted people stickers after the fact. If people bothered to email them to ask for their order run number sticker, so they didn't even just automatically do it. It was like, anyone who bothers to ask us for this, we'll give it to them. And it was just like, what? Yeah, it was like, what? The whole point of having like a limited print run is that, it'll be one of 1,000 or whatever, or, you know what I mean? To not even bother with that. Give me a second, I get this army painter, speed paint. To not even bother with that. Yeah, I wasn't impressed. So what green are we going for? Camo cloak? No. There must be an army paint here. Fucking Jesus. Green black. No. And I'd actually, do you know what I need to do? I need to do a review, or try out the beginner paint set, the Battletech beginner paint set. I just haven't gotten around to it. No, we're not doing it in orc skin. What else have we got? Green black. Ah, Jesus, where is it? Pretty sure there was like an army green. Is that it? Is it just camo cloak? Is that the green? Yeah, because orc skin looks a bit too... Oof. So camo cloak, is that the one we're going for here? Anybody want us to try out a speed paint? Absolution green. Like, I don't know. Which one shall we go for this herby? It's due to get a bit of paint. We've orc skin, we've camo cloak, we've absolution green. Place your bets now. We're not going green black. Shake whale apparently. Purple academy. Oh Jesus. I mean, you could go purple. There's nothing stopping you. Sand golem. Go for a tan color. Yeah, I suppose you could do. You could go for like sand golem. There's a few of them. There's a few. Runic grey. I do like a grey. Hive dweller purple. Slaughter red. Malignant green. It's bleeding loads of them. Fire giant orange. Cobor spear. I think that's it on the old greens and the sand golem. Which one do you think we should go for? I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure. We look at the comment section. I just picked the normal version of it, said Warlock. Yeah, it's understandable. It's a big chunk of change. Got a few very limited edition Battletech books, says Lorcan. Master Rules Revived, Total Warfare, and A Time of War leather-bound editions. They joked about playing Plushie Tech on, I think it was the 24-hour end of the Kickstarter stream, suggested Omnimex would have Velcro patches to mount little plushie elementals. Oh man, that's brilliant. Make it so, number one. Checking my numbered books. Master Rules Revised is 217 of 1,000. Total Warfare is 953 of 1,000. Time of War is 425 of 700. I have the regular force printing hardbacks of the 3 as well. Jesus, man. You're not going to be running out of rule books anytime soon. I've seen the gaff you live in. Well, from the outside. Yeah. I'm like, Jesus. I don't know how you have space for it. So no takers on the speed paints. No comments. We're going absolution green then. We go camo clock. We'll go for the darker green. Though I feel it may be too dark. We shall see how she acts. And shake the bejesus out of it. Yeah, I was a bit perplexed with the speed paints when they were like, hey, we've brought out like these speed paints, and then people were like, yeah, they don't dry. And they're like, oh, don't worry about it, just varnish it. It's like, nah, mate, that's not how wargaming miniatures work. Normally people paint them and just start playing with them, so then they brought out a second generation of them. But I bought the first gen ones, you know what I mean? Because I was like, people love speed paints. Speed paints for Battletech. And then after that, the starter paint set comes out for Battletech, and it's like, Jesus, I really did not time this well at all. Right, I think I've shook it enough. Let's give it a bash. I don't even think I've used it. Oh, this is a really dark green. Ah well, Mr. Orby's getting covered in it. So I've done the metals, like, so there's like the metals in his legs and stuff. So I may have to go back in and touch them up. Did like the orc skin speed paint mixed with regular AP bright gold for Warrior House. Oh, okay. You're mixing them up. Regular AP bright gold. So gold and the speed paint. Talking copies of the Battletech general rule books. You've got multiples, rise twice, total weapon, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Multiples of stuff. You're a madman. I probably should start painting this from the top, since gravity will take it down. This is very dark. I haven't painted the windows yet, but we'll just... So this is the brush they gave you with it, the monster brush. And I do actually have some matte varnish, so it's not the end of the world. I can matte varnish stuff as need be. Suppose I can throw green on everything, and then anything I want to come back in and do metal again, I'll just black out and throw metal on it. So just sort of green it up and go from there. Those exhausts, I probably will come back in and black out the little exhausts again. But we will throw a bit of green on it to see how it goes. The old injection ports. Like I said, I've done some metal, so the very tip of the barrel is in metal, so I don't want to go over that, but I'm not too bothered if I do. I can always go back and touch it up. It's not the end of the world. And hopefully the sort of black undercoat and then zenithal dry brushing help with the shading. Not that it needs it. I'd be worried though if... Originally I was worried if dry brushing would leave a texture on it and it wouldn't... would affect the coverage. But it seems to be alright. Like, speed paints are tried and tested at this stage, I feel. Most folk are being mucking about with them. Make sure there's no patches of white, and I think we're grand. Try not to overload the brush either. But yeah, like some of the folk from the club have done great jobs with speed paints and regular paints. We did a painting competition. One of the guys from the club, Mike, he won. And he uses a oil technique, so he uses oil paints for his weathering. So like you see as he was talking, I played a game against him actually there last week, and he was talking to me about how he uses oil paints for his weathering, and they look good, man. He's got some really nicely painted minis. He won the painting competition. Fair play to him. But I've not tried oil paints. Maybe it's something worth trying out. I have enough mechs at this stage that I can mess around with what I want. They don't all have to look the same. I mean, like, army size for Battletech is really sort of company. So you're looking at 12 mechs. So if you're doing a colour scheme and doing 12 mechs in that colour scheme, it's like... That's grand. But, you know, if you're doing a mercenary company, they don't all have to be the same colour. They can be different. You know, they can be their own sort of personal colours. I suppose you'd put insignia on the unit there to sort of tie them all together as uniform when it comes to the paint scheme for a unit. They might have individual unique colour schemes, but as long as they have the appropriate unit insignia, I think some mercenary units would be quite happy with it. I think it's one of the units, I think, was like the Pink Panthers or something like that. Where it's a group that gets together now and then, so they don't have... The unit insignia is usually somewhere on the mech, but it's not like... It's not the predominant insignia, if you get me. It's like, hey, we're a mercenary unit that gets together now and then. You know... one last heist we'll get together or whatever as the jobs come in. So I like that idea as well. Like there's a unit that sort of irregularly sort of gets together. Like the old heist films or something. I mean, that looks alright. It's a bit dark. But it's not too bad. Ace Darnan's Whiplets is ad hoc unit. Ace Pilot's a Pink Panther. Oh, I knew there was a Pink Panther in there somewhere. See, my brain was like, there's a Pink Panther. Is that not like the paw? So like a pink paw, Ace Darman's Whippets. Yeah. Yeah, I remember reading that. Because see, when I got into Battletech, I was like, right, I'm buying all the mercenary books. Like all of them. All of them. And I went through a few of them for the crack. And yeah, there's some interesting units. Some pretty interesting units. So there you go. Look, like even this green, even though, so this is the same green here, but it's slightly different because it's over a different base. So that one's over black, whereas this one's over black, but it's being dry brushed white for the edge highlights. So even that looks slightly different. I don't know if you guys can see it because of the white balance levels on the camera, but this is slightly darker in tone. So there you go, that was a bit of fun, something interesting. All the different greens, deciding what ones I particularly like or don't like, and go from there. But Centurion, he was due to get a wash with some green. We'll put them to the side. I think the Phoenix Hawk as well has got good enough coverage. So Centurion, Phoenix Hawk. I'm not too sure about the Archer. If it needed... yeah, I think the Archer needs another lick of paint or two here. The coverage isn't great on the top. So I'll have to do him. But I need to find that paint pot that I've misplaced. Jesus. In the moving of houses. There's a couple of stories about Ace and Shrapnel. You'll probably hit the Force one soon. Oh, sweet. Well, I finished Shrapnel 1, so I need to actually crack on with Shrapnel 2. Since I've moved, I have a bit of a commute on the bus. It takes about an hour to get into work. So I've started reading Shrapnel now. Whereas beforehand, I'm a bit of a lazy bugger when it comes to reading, but I'm actually catching up on some of the lore. So yeah, I've read Shrapnel 1. There was one or two bits that I didn't bother with. Like, I didn't bother reading the scenario because I figure I'll come back to it when I want to play a scenario. And then there was a bit about, like, sniper rifles or something like that. And I'm interested in reading lore at the moment. But it's nice that those pieces are included so that it's got a bit of something for everyone, you know what I mean? But yeah, Shrapnel 2 is next up. And I think I've up to Shrapnel 9 or 10. So I've plenty, and there's been more released since as well. I think it's up to like Shrapnel 13 now or something. So it's pretty consistent. Oh, I've up to Shrapnel 9, that's what I have. Because, well, I think Shrapnel 10 was like a bumper edition or something like that. So Lorcan, when you're next doing an L Shrapnel order there, you know what I mean? Give me a shout there, bud. We'll get the old ball rolling. Hopefully by then I'll have read a few more. And I'm starting on the Warrior and Guard series as well now. Like I said, I'm a very lazy reader. But I've what have I got under my belt? I've only got like the Grey Death Legion, that trilogy. I've Wolves on the Border. And now I'm starting on Warrior on Guard. I've loads of books. I've actually got quite a few. I just haven't gotten around to reading them. It's just a case of getting into the habit of reading books again, which is weird because when I was a kid, I used to inhale books. Holy Jesus. I used to love it. We had like a beanbag that our folks had handed down to myself and my brother. So we had a little like beanbag in our room. I used to just sit on that and read books, man. I used to love it. It was great crack. But it eventually had to be thrown out because it was busted. So it was just like a material bag full of like styrofoam balls or styrofoam, yeah. Wouldn't be a bad idea to get another one of them. Go crack. If I had the space, I'd buy one now. But alas, we have cats. There are cats here. I used to live with cats. I'm surprised they haven't been scratching on the door. One of them's a needy mofo. It's a very young cat. But I don't think like beanbags and cats would mix well. So maybe not. Hold off until a later date. Until I've got like a man cave or Battletech cave. And throw one in there. A little reading corner. But hopefully by then I'll have most of the lore read. Yay! Hopefully. Well, like I was saying, I got a reinforced company of deck commandos and a company of warrior house Imara. The rest is coloured by Lance Star, different things. Yeah. I figure people would be like that. There'll be like 1 or 2 units that folk will make like companies for that they really dig. And then after that it will be like lances and company sizes. Or even regiment like. Company of warrior house Imara. Yeah. Reinforced company. Yeah. Or regiments. People painting up regiments of units. It's like, hey, this is the unit I really dig. I like these dudes. I'm doing a regiment of them. But then I suppose over the years, if you've been playing Battletech a long time, it's like you didn't really decide one day, hey, I'm going to do a regiment. It's kind of like I've painted mechs and it's just grown to regiment size over time. I kind of expect that would be like how it kind of happens. More green. 14 just came out last week. Issue 12 is the best so far, of course. Oh, of course. And 14's lining up to be as good as 12, is it? Oh, Jesus Christ. I can hardly contain my excitement. So I'll, a year and a half from now when I actually do get around to reading it, I'll be sure to comment on my review. I'll be sure to let you know of my review, Lorcan. Sure, why not? You were saying the word count for the submissions to Shrapnel has gone down, has it? It's down to 5,000 instead of 7,000. I mean, I've never taught writing lore. But it'd be interesting. Give it a bash. Surely there's one good story that I could come up with. I'm alright, most people have decent stories. But my mastery of the English language is not exactly the Mae West when it comes to text. You'll be sure to skip my article because it's game material. Oh, most definitely. But I'll save it for future reference. I have a 7 Crucius Lancers Regiment and a 13 Wolf Guard cluster. Nice. Regiments and clusters. Look at this shit. Holy Jesus. And here's me struggling to get paint on a lance. I've always been terrible at painting miniatures. But I find, like, with Battletech, it's not as daunting. I always say, like, oh, I hate painting miniatures or I suck at painting miniatures. But then I take into account, like, when I was playing 40k more actively, I'd be trying to paint units of 30 orc boys. And I'd be putting detail into them. So I'd be trying to do camouflage for them or individual camouflage patterns or trying to paint them up to a standard I'd be happy with, you know, picking out nails and teeth and eyes and stuff like that. And it's like, Jesus. You know what I mean? The amount of effort I'd put in would be the same amount of effort I'm putting into painting mix. So that's like 30 mix. So it's like I even have I think of 100 and I think of either 90 or 120 Gretchen. And then I think I painted 60 of them up in Rebel Grot colours. And Gretchen actually paint really quickly. Because once you've got their skin done, that's like 90% of the model. But with the Orc Boys, it's like it's all the details, all the boots and the straps and stuff like that. It take forever. Take forever to paint up. Whereas I find mechs are actually easier and quicker to paint up. So if I was to paint 30 mechs or paint 30 Orc Boys, I reckon I'd actually get the mechs done quicker. So maybe it's not a case of I don't dislike painting or find it a chore. Maybe it's a case of the miniatures that I've been trying to paint and the quantity needed to play the game was just like a motivation killer, you know? But yeah, the idea of having to paint 4 mechs is not daunting at all. It's brilliant. Or even 12 mechs. Having to paint up 12 mechs, that's grand. That seems feasible. And it's like, well, what color scheme are you going to do? Whatever I want. Or go onto Camo Specs online if you want like specific unit insignias or unit colors. Even the Legends books. The Legends books are pretty good. I got one Legends book for myself. I got one for the store. Just in case people want to get them. Do you know what? We will actually. Do you know? I think we'll throw the wash on this Archer. I think it's got enough of its like. I think it's got enough of the green on it that it's all right. Won't be terrible. We'll just weather the bejesus out of it. I'd like to do clump foliage sort of smoke trails, if you get me. Because I did some for explosions and stuff that I keep forgetting to put in my miniature case and actually bring to games to take pictures with. So I will do that when this stream is over. I'll actually finally put the explosions and smoke markers that I made for playing Battletech in the miniature case. So I actually take them to games. Like, I keep forgetting to do that. It's like, I'll put this time and effort in, but I just keep forgetting to bring them. Even when I'm playing vehicle games and vehicles are getting exploded, I'm like, I built one specifically to put under turrets to make it look like, you know, it's been knocked out. But I just keep forgetting to bring them. Very soon I'm also saying he batch paints in battalions, but I have time. Good man. I think it's about making time. And I find it's time of the year as well. Like really now, I'm itching to sort of get out and get fishing. I haven't been out fishing in a long time, in months. Whereas painting is sort of like the main reason why I do the hobby hangouts is that it, you know, it's a means for me to get painting as well. Most of me painting these days, I have to say, is happening in hobby hangouts, so I'm not getting a lot done. But when I do get the ball rolling, I do, you know, it's not a chore. I think it's more about just making the time. You know what I mean? Making the time to do what you want to do, or what you need to do happens, because if you don't get it done, well then the stuff that you need to do doesn't get done. And then you suffer the consequences of it, you know. But it's making time. To just sort of paint and chill out. It's a very sort of therapeutic experience, I find. I had gotten my brother to paint some miniatures, and that was one of the things he really noted about it, was the losing track of time, the sort of just focusing on the miniature, and that time just melts away, and your worries melt away because you're just concentrating on painting. You're not thinking about, you know, your trials and tribulations of life or your job or family worries. You know what I mean? You're not worrying about life in general. You're just sort of putting paint on the brush and the brush to the miniature and just enjoying it, you know? And that's the type of experience I like to go for. I'm sure if people are going for like top end, high end paint jobs or competitions and stuff, it's a different beast. But then that's the same with any competition. If you take your hobby and go to competition level, it has the potential to be stressful. But thankfully, any of the Battletech competitions I've gone to, I need to pick out the metal on this guy. That's what I need to do. Any of the competitions I've gone for Battletech, it's actually quite good. We're very lucky here in Ireland. We've got a really solid community when it comes to the Battletech community. And I've noted since talking to folk about, attending the Battletech sort of competition, that a lot of people's minds have been coloured with their experiences with other war games. But I've noticed it's a really different beast when it comes to Battletech. It's actually a pretty good experience. It's a pretty solid community that we have. Pansy Division. And they're still on the go, but they started in the 90s and the name is like a double pun, which is half again the lowest form of wit. To cripple the working finance the affairs of painting. Thought it might have been an auto typo for Panzer or Panther. That's one of the puns in their name, yeah. Oh, right, okay. What can I say? He usually batch paints 8 to 12 max to the same colour scheme at the same time, except right now where I'm doing 4 slants of Pansy Division, they all have different colours. Yeah. Yeah, batch, 12 miniatures batch painting isn't too bad. Like, when I hear the words batch painting, it's just, the horror of trying to paint like so many orcs just floods back into my memories. But then I find it depends. Like, for me personally, I find I get the motivation to paint miniatures from playing the game and enjoying playing the game. So, like, if I play a game and the miniatures I'm using are only base coated or they're only undercoated, and we play a game on the tabletop, and that's how the Night Star got its green coat. It got it like a kill on the tabletop, and I was like, well, this guy deserves a paint job now. You know what I mean? Can't be having them going unpainted. And then it looks better, you know what I mean? I find it looks better. I don't think everyone should be, shouldn't be any pressure for people to get paint on their miniatures, but it does look better. For a guy who was known for playing playing 40k with unpainted miniatures for years upon years, it's like, yeah, I noticed it makes a bit of a difference when there's actually paint on the old minis, our shelf. It looks good. If you got like a good table and got like terrain, I think 3D terrain's another thing that's on the books. That's nice. I think I went back in though with the paint because, yeah, that green seems to So I think I went back in with the green again and went over it again. So I'm not too worried about that shoulder. Didn't have the best coverage. But like the likes of this Shadowhawk, like, holy Jesus. Now this is a metal one. So this is the Ironwind metal miniature, but it's the new sculpt. So I have a few of these actually, because some of the miniatures are actually kind of hard to get a hold of, depending on the miniature. That's the new Quick Draw from the Kickstarter. It's pretty cool. I need to decide what way to paint this up. I think I'll do it in the tournament colours. I managed to get my hands on one of them. Way. But yeah, like there's a few mechs that I can't get a hold of outside of like a game of Armored Combat, and there's only so many of those boxes I'm willing to sacrifice to the altar of miniatures. You know what I mean? So like that's the only place we can currently get a Shadowhawk. I think I bought Griffins, Wolverines, Shadowhawks in the Ironwind metals just to have them. Lorcan is saying, have you seen the Hextech stuff G4 Gale Force 9 are releasing? Basically Thunderhead Studios work, mass produced and pre-painted. I may, and by may I mean I have ordered in their first batch run, I think I've ordered 6 of each building, or 6 of most of them, and then 4 of like the really big ones. So I've ordered some for the store, and I will be keeping some myself, I think. Even if it's just so that people could use it at the club. But yeah, I've ordered some of it. I've seen it. It looks cool. I've got some on order for the store, so we will have some of them. When they come in, hopefully I'll place the order soon enough. They're still not released yet, but from what I understand, talking to the modelling from Advantage lads, the all that stuff is all like sold out to distributor level, if you get me. So it's like, yeah, I reckon it's like gonna be this production run, and then you're not gonna see them for a good while until they do another production one. And with Gale Force 9, I don't know. Sometimes they're great with them, sometimes not so much. I've literally got bags of miniatures here. So what have we got? This is like an Atlas. This is the Mad Cat. It's the one with the SRM launchers. Some of them in metal. I've even got some of the premium mechs. I haven't put them together because I want to do hey, let's do a video, but then, you know, not having that all sorted yet. You know what I mean? Eventually it'll happen. I've also got like a shed load of trucks and vehicles for scenarios, or just like filler on the table, you know what I mean? Just to add a bit of fluff, make things look interesting. Hey, Essex here. What's the story, bud? What's the crack? Lorcan is saying out next month apparently. The terrain, yeah, apparently so. July. It's due to be July, but see the problem is like when I'm looking at the distributor and it's showing me dates, like the dates are all over the place. So I could be told that it's coming out next month, but then it'll get knocked back again and again. So I don't know what the story is with dates. I don't announce stuff until I physically have it in my hand. But I just give people rough estimations. It's like, oh, there's a new source book coming out. Who wants one? So like I'll order enough for whoever wants one in the club, myself, and then just like 2 for the store. The second one was the Mad Cat Mark IV Savage Wolf. Yes, it was. Where did I put it? It was / is, and I bought it when I was down in Limerick. I think it was one of the first tournaments I went down to Limerick, and so this is how this guy comes. Literally all the parts. I added a base. It didn't come with a base. So this is the Ironwind metals. So this guy will need to be pinned and put together. But yeah, it's a Savage Wolf. I think it was in one of the tournaments that we played. It needs to be pinned and put together. But you can see why, like, it's not a bad sculpt. It's nice, but you can see why the game didn't really take off until the plastics came out. Because it's like people don't really want to be dealing with. I mean, even the premium X or ball and socket, that's not too bad. Because it's like a resin. But, and they're new sculpts as well. But yeah, that I assembled one for Mark. Pinning is essential. Yeah, well, look at the connection point. Like, look how small. That's my fingernail there. Like, that's only a couple of mil across, and that's a connection point for the arm. And that literally connects there. So that has to be pinned. Otherwise, if you stare at that too hard, that arm is coming off. Like, holy Jesus, that arm will come off. I would literally be tempted to just drill through one side and out the other. And then just pin both arms on. Like that. Just one big long pin. For the structural integrity. This looks like it's hand sculpted as well. It doesn't look like it's a print or whatever. I know. It's not exactly... Like, it looks decent, but... I think it's hand sculpted or... Looks like a hand sculpt. So you put one together for Mark. Is it still in one piece? And the same for the legs. Like, look at the connection point on it. You know what I mean? There's that little nub. Has to take all the weight. All of this weight. Most of the weight's up here. And then the arms. So if you're looking at that much, needs to be on those 2 points. These little dudes. I'll get around to it eventually. It's not a priority, but I bought one because I was at a tournament and we had to play using it, and I thought it'd be cool to buy it. You know, you literally did a single pin between the legs. Yeah, I think I ended up doing separate ones for the arms. I can understand, but yeah, looking at the legs like that seems thin enough to just go through. The arms, I'm not too sure. I don't know if they're in alignment with each other. But I think it'd be doable. If you got a Dremel and just in one side and out the other. You wouldn't know yourself. But yeah, like metal miniatures, people only really got interested into the game when they started doing the plastics, because a lot of folk don't want to be dealing with metal miniatures. You know what I mean? The hassle of them, the chip, you varnish them, you have to pin them, you know. Well, like the Battletech miniatures aren't top of the line premium GW quality, you know, regarding detail. They're good enough, like they're grand. They're plain pieces to me, so these serve well. They serve a function well for me. Like this is good enough quality for me. I'm happy enough with it. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, I get that, you know, but I think it serves its function. And they're easy enough to paint as well. They're grand. You don't need a lot of them. You know, 12, and that's like 12 mechs is like an army, like, you know. But yeah, pretty much what we have on the table here, it's like if you were building an army, you'd have like 12 mechs, literally 12 dudes. And that's plenty. You'll play them in groups of 4, usually. You'll play a lance, so then you have like 3 lances there. So, you know, if you're playing a normal game that you want to do in like 2.5 hours over an evening, you'd use a lance. You'd use 4 of them at a time. But it's like if you're playing a campaign, like this is how many mechs fit in one dropship. Your Union dropship is 12. And then, like, I suppose if you want, you could buy like 2 airspace fighters. And then there you go. You have 2 aircraft, 12 mechs, sorted. There's your mercenary group. You can't go wrong, really. It'd be helpful if I actually put them in shot as well. See, that archer's still a bit wet. But you get what I'm saying. If you had like 12 miniatures, there you go. There's an army. Doesn't take an awful lot, and it's like what, 25, 30 quid for a box of 4. So you can buy all these for like less than 100 quid. Yeah, so you can have a full army for Battletech for like 100 quid or less. And then, yeah, you're laughing. What's Clint saying? From the Essex Boys channel, I feel similar about my Legion minis playing pieces, but my orcs are my hobby project for painting and scratch building. Yeah, no, I get that, Clint. That's why I still have my orc stuff. If I feel the need to do like a bit of chopping and changing or doing some conversion work for like plastic art and stuff. I mean, you can do plastic art stuff on these guys, but it's not going to be the same sort of effect. I mean, unless you're deciding to do the scratch build a drop ship. But boy, Jesus, that thing, like a drop ship in scale with these guys would be like a beach ball, pretty much. So think of like beach ball size in comparison to this dude. So you'd have to scratch build something that would be like beach ball size out of plastic card, and yeah, and go from there. Um, I mean, it's doable, and like terrain and stuff, but I think, yeah, in regards to the miniatures, like chopping and changing them, you could do. After you get a couple of them, especially if they're in plastic, they all come in pre-posed. So if you want to chop and change them, you're gonna have to take a blade out to them. But that's sort of the nature of the beast. Is like they're already pre-assembled. These boils here, this is a 3D print. So is this one. But the rest of them are all just the plastics. And then, like we were showing earlier, there's the metals, there's the resins, the premium miniatures in resin. So you've ooh, sorry, apologies. I scratch built a Union class dropship out of a very large hamster ball, modelling clay and balsa wood. Holy Jesus, why have I not seen this thing? Why haven't you built one yet then, Scar? A drop pod, I mean, a dropship. Why haven't I built a dropship yet, mate? Because I haven't got space to keep one. I could build it, but where in the Jesus will I? Well, I suppose I do fish, so I could just get like fishing wire. I could get some monofilament and hang it from the ceiling whenever I'm not using it for games. But there are like 3D prints. You can get 3D files for them. Look at the Stalker. That's a great miniature now. The old Stalker miniature was ugly as sin, but I actually quite like the new one. But yeah, you can get 3D prints for dropships. It's just I never got around to fixing my 3D printer and printing it. But yeah, you could do. I suppose, like, I'm trying to think to myself, how would I go about building the dropship? And if I was making out a plastic card, I think, Jesus, like, you'd have to start with like a toy Death Star or something like that and just reskin it. You know what I mean? Or something like that. Or like a vacuum form like over a ball or a sphere. You'd have to vacuum form the base of it and then just yeah, scratch build it. Like, you'd have to sit there and score it out. And because it, like, so when you're doing orcs, it's not too much of an issue if you're not straight with your lines and your edges, because it's stylistic. You know what I mean? It's like that rusty, cobbled together stylistic look. Whereas if you're doing like science fiction, clean lines, and you have to get the angles right, like, that's really hard to do. Like the guys who do like proper scale modeling, where they're building an actual vehicle that exists in miniature, in proper scale, like out of plastic card, that's just like god tier stuff to me. Like, it's just crazy, but it's doable. It is doable. I don't see why not. Just sent you a photo of the dropship shop ship. It's a shop ship now. The dropship called the shop ship. Just hang from the ceiling like I used to do on my Airfix planes. Man, I think everybody's had the old Airfix out of the ceiling at some stage. Um, where's this dropship? See, I don't have the brightness up, but it's... I don't know if you can see it, but there you are. Really, I should have like pull an image up. But there's Lorcan's dropship. Yeah, that's about the right size. I think it is that. Yeah, maybe I'd make one about that size or a little bit bigger, but I can see the vents and the landing gear and the turrets. Yeah, it looks cool, man. This is the thing that I'd find the hardest would be to put the paneling on and trying to get it all into alignment. Now, you've managed to do it and you've gotten the effect that you want. But I would have to sit there and try figure out all the angles and sit there with a circle cutter so that they're in line with each other, and it would be so much effort because that's otherwise it would annoy me. But like your miniature is nice, man. I like this dropship. It's good. It's got that sort of heft to it. Looks like it's got a fair amount of armor plating on it, and I like the vents. The hazarding on it is pretty cool. And there's a Coke can for scale. I would have thought they'd have to be a bit bigger, but that seems to work well. Looks good. Do you still have it? Like, I haven't seen it. You haven't brought it to the club or anything. Do you still have the dropship? Like, does it get carted out on special occasions? Is it like your good china for your wargaming? It's like, the guests are over. We'll wheel out the dropship. You're saying it's not a shop ship until I put a Clan Seafox logo on it. Fair point. You could probably kit bash some Battletech miniatures from CGW Tau models. I mean, you could do if you wanted to. I mean, there's nothing stopping you from making your own mix. You know what I mean? If you're that way inclined. But yeah, like a dropship, that's a big project. Like, fair play to Lorcan for putting it together. It looks like you put a shed load of effort in it. I still have it, but it's battered. So has it come apart on you? Like, I bought an orc gargant. Now it's just a bit bigger than a stomper because it's an old gargant that someone scratch built years ago, but it needs some TLC, so that's a project for years from now. Maybe when we're due to do a big apocalypse game, I'll put the effort in. But it's a gargant that's been going around on the orc scene for years and years, and it needs a bit of loving. What was the point I was getting at? But yeah, it's a bit battered and it needs to be fixed. But it adds character to it, like, you know what I mean. If something's a bit battered, it's a bit war torn, and it's gone through the wars. But that's fine. Like, they're wargaming miniatures. They're supposed to take a bit of a baiting, if you know what I mean, and just do a bit of weathering, do repair work, do a bit of weathering. The panels for the legs, and in a couple of cases the legs have been broken in a few times. One of the turrets caved in. All around protuberances on the hull were foam balls covered in clay. Ooh, okay. Like, what would I do for turrets? I suppose if you were trying to do them to the style of the 1980s drop pod, they would have been rounded ones. But now I'd probably just make them out of plastic card, or even make one. So if you made one out of plastic card and then just mold it, I suppose you could mold it. Or just find plastic. You can find like, you can buy like if I was doing it now, what would I do? You can buy like Christmas baubles, like clear plastic Christmas baubles that you can put together and put your own things in them. I'd buy a few of them probably at the right size and go from there. But yeah, if you were doing like foam and then clay over them, I can understand why it would damage over time, because like the substructure is foam, so there's a bit of give in it. So if it takes a knock, then the clay's gonna crack and come off. Where do I to do it again? I'd lay the clay on thinner and try find thinner balsa as well, and probably use plastic hair for the legs. Kinder Egg plastic for the turrets would work. Yeah, it would actually, Kinder Egg. I wouldn't bother with clay at all, Lorcan. Like if you were doing, air drying clay doesn't really like taking a knock. If I was doing it again, if you were to do it again, I mean, it depends upon your approach, but yeah, I'd mostly do it out of plastic. Like what Clint's saying there, like Kinder Eggs and stuff like that. Because it lasts longer. It survives. You know what I mean? It's like that age old adage with sort of scenery for wargaming. It's you can build, like if you look at the guys who do model trains and stuff like that, and when they do terrain, it looks really good, but it does not stand up to taking a knock at all. But it looks top notch. Whereas wargaming stuff, like the wargaming terrain that we tend to buy, that has to go into a gaming store, and survive being leaned on, having dice thrown on it, maybe having stuff spilled out and stuff like that. Like that gets the absolute snot kicked out of it. So the difference between the two of them, like one will look really good, whereas the other one sort of has to be substantial enough. And I think that's the sort of approach you'd have to take with your dropship is when you're building it, build it to last, rather than just to look like a dropship. You know what I mean? But then I suppose, like, the first time you do a project, you learn lessons, you go forward, you take the lessons and go through them. Kinder Egg plastic for turrets, cheap ass. Yeah, true. But what I'd probably try and do is get a monitor dropship from Hardware Studios at some point, or see if I can get one of their nicer free dropships painted up. Is that the one that's not a leopard dropship? Honest Gov. Main thing I use the clay for is to cover the ball to give it a flat surface for the balls to lay down on. I did milliput. Now, going back years ago, there was orc rocks. So it was they're basically asteroids that orcs strap engines, and they hollow out and they stick engines on them, and launchers and stuff like that. And I made a couple of them. And what I did was I was told by one of the other guys to use milliput. You can water milliput down, and then you just skim it over the foam to give it sort of a hard sort of like skin or outer surface, and that actually worked pretty well. So it was literally like styrofoam balls that I cut into like jagged shapes, and then I skimmed them with milliput. I watered down the milliput a good bit, and not so much to a paste, but just enough where I could mush it into the surface, and then smoothed it off as I saw fit. And that worked really well. So maybe milliput wouldn't be a bad idea as well. Like our friend Bad Fang, he sculpts miniatures using milliput, and he uses as the substructure. He gets tins of beans, and he cuts them open and flattens them out, and then he cuts that flat metal shape to whatever he needs. So he uses that as a substructure. But I mean, it means that his miniatures weigh an absolute ton, but they can take an absolute beating. Like the Stomper that he built, that's really a gargant, is really cool looking. Nick's here from Grey Primer. What's the story, bud? Larkin said, my wife and brother-in-law called it the brain for months as it slowly sanded it down. Oh, cool. Yeah, that sounds pretty funny. The monitor is not a union, honest gov. The Gepard is there, not a leopard. Oh, that's right. And they have not a broadsword, not a Confederate as well. Yeah, that sounds hilarious. It does. But yeah, like getting our hands on a 3D dropship is not a bad idea. Or, I mean, making one. Finding a suitable sized plastic sphere to use as the basis wouldn't be a bad idea either, and go from there. But I think that's it. Put the dropship photo back up on screen for Nick. Hold on. Let me find it. Should still be there. This is how low tech we're going at the moment. I used to have like a Discord channel in the Orky Discord that I used to get people to throw their images up as they painted along with us. I should probably actually go back to doing that. I am currently running off a laptop that's as old as the hills, but with one camera, that's why you're not getting to see me, and I've only just set the mic up, so hopefully the audio's decent. If there's any problems with the audios, give me a shout, and I'll try and sort it out. But yes, this is Lorcan's dropship. It's ugly as sin, but cute as a button. I love it. And he still has it, but it needs to be fixed apparently. So yeah, you were saying like the turrets. Yeah, Kinder eggs wouldn't be a bad idea. Or even like there's loads of little toys that kids buy. Like you'll see them in Smith's when you go to Smith's toy store. There's all these little hidden toy things. They're like Savage boxes, but for kids, and it'll be like little dollies or stuff for boys or whatever, you know what I mean? But they're all little spheres that are about that size that you could easily like cut down. And it'd be really cool if actually like, because if you get half of a dome and if you give it if you cut it in half, you'll get 2 turrets out of it then. And if you were to just put a bottom face on it, like if you get, I don't know, a bit of card or whatever, if you did that and then you could actually anchor it and you could have them so that they could turn, that would be cool. And build you could build a connection for the gun so that the guns can move up and down. That would look pretty sweet. They're saying he has to get his Gargant finished. I mean, that's a lot of work, man. Put the dropship. Yeah. You made it in 2009. You definitely don't want to land that on a slope. Yeah. I don't think it would fare too well to any sort of incline at all. There's little plastic Christmas baubles in Tiger and IKEA that will work for them now. I think so, yeah. I think there's loads of stuff out there now that would work perfectly for it. So what would you do then, Lorcan? Would you refurbish your old dropship, or would you start from scratch and sort of take the lessons you've learned and go from there? Because there's nothing wrong with sort of refurbishing old sort of ships as well. Because it's bound to happen in universe. Little plastic Christmas boggles in Tiger. Yeah. Ryan's World is popular, I believe. Where in the Jesus is Ryan's World? Is this a store I haven't heard of? I was in Mr. Price today actually, and there's loads of like cheap plasticky toys. Out in Blanchardstown, so you could check that out. There was a whole section upstairs I wasn't aware existed. It was all stationery, and I was looking at, what was I looking at? I was drawn to like the A4 laminate pouches for just for doing up for mechs for future reference, and I think there was like 100 for 15 quid or something like that. So that wasn't. I think that's fairly well priced. Or can I say I need to start from scratch? Yeah, it's not a bad idea. Brand new shampoo. That'd be cool, man. Yeah, I should give it a go. I think a leopard ship would be easier to make. I think you'd be more likely to get me to make a leopard dropship than you would a Union, because especially based sort of on the aerodynamic sort of designs. Angular. Well, I mean, I suppose you could make like an angular Union where it's not a sphere, but it's made of you can make like a geodesic sort of sphere, make it out of loads of angles. So I suppose that would be easier to do. But then it'd end up just look like the bleeding crystal maze, crystal on legs or whatever. You know what I mean? It'd end up looking like that. Ryan's World is a range of blind boy eggs filled with little toys. Oh yes, and that's the type of thing I was talking about. You can probably get it in Smith's. Yeah, that sort of thing. So, yeah. I'm sure if your friends have kids that when they're finished with them, you can acquire them or just tell them to hold on to them for you. Do you know what I used to do back in the day when I worked in hotels? I actually held on to a shed load of the till rolls, the cores of them when they were plastic, and I was making a stomper with them at one stage, and I managed to get like halfway through the build, and I was keeping it in the kitchen at the time, and then my mother just like threw it out. She got sick of looking at it, which I find hilarious, but yeah, it wasn't great plastic, but like free plastic, you can't go wrong, man. You know what I mean? The amount of till rolls we used to go through, I'd literally just throw them behind the till, and then wait a week or two or a couple of weeks, and yeah, just build up. Bunch of people made leopards out of Star Trek runabout kits back in the day. Oh, but I suppose yeah, if there's a kit that's close enough, why not? Or if you see like a super cheap toy in a Poundland or whatever, that's close enough to the dimensions that you want, go for it. Like there's people keep posting up about like this Rhine Wars thing that Nick's talking about. There's like big Easter eggs, and people keep talking about. Oh, it's not the Union, and my brain's not working out because I'm tired. Uh, the other dropship, the Overlord, I think it is. And making them, making Overlord dropships out of them, which is doable. It's definitely doable. But again, it's about sitting down and getting the angles right on the panels, and then curving plasticard as well. I mean, plasticard's probably the way to go because you'll get a good finish on it, and it'll look nice. But you'll have to score the rear side of it so that you can actually get it to bend into place. I mean, that's what I would do. I'd get like a cheap egg toy or whatever, and I'd skim it in plasticard. You're gonna have to super glue it on. Maybe even do a couple of layers. Overlord is more egg-shaped common troop transport. Yeah, yeah. Iron Wind also do a mech scale leopard. Yeah, but I think I've seen the mech scale leopard. If that was the one that was on sale in the last Kickstarter, and Jesus Christ, that thing was horrendous looking. It looks like it's It looks like it's squashed. The miniatures being squashed together, and it looks like it's drop cast in resin, and it looks like it was made in the early 90s. Heating the plastic card might work as well. It might do. You'd need a form. So that's what I mean, like if you vacuum formed it. So if you heat the plastic card, so say you have a semicircle, right? And you heat the plastic card and then you vacuum form it over this semicircle form. You could do that, and you could do that a couple of times. And that would give you the core shell of the body if you want. But you could, yeah, I suppose you could heat the plastic card and then just get it to form over the toy egg or whatever you're doing. You could heat it and then form it over that, and then just draw the design that you want on it. So you'd sit down and draw and take into account that you're going to cut and segment it. So measure it out what you do and don't want on it. But once you've got like base layers, once you've got like the first layer of plastic card over it, that's all segmented and measured out and squared off, then it'll become easier to do extra layers and greebles and stuff like that. Because it's once you've got the core of it. Because once you've got the core of it glued together, you could literally just come in with like a Dremel and cut sections of it out and be like, if you make the core of it and then come back in. I don't even have a pen to sort of start sketching an example. But if you made the core of it and then you start cutting in and dremeling things out, you can just slot in compartments then. You can just build little boxes that slot into it once you've cut them out. And then you can easily integrate that then and just tidy it up, backfill it a bit, sand it back down so that it's flush with itself. You could make some pretty kick-ass looking stuff. I mean, like, there's nothing stopping you from having, like, you can have a mech. You can have, like, an airlock. So what I'd do is I'd have, like, say this was, like, the inside of our dropship or whatever. Right, so say that part's the inside. I'd actually do an airlock That way you'd have to be cheeky and you wouldn't have to detail the whole of the inside of the dropship. I mean, if you want to, you can, but this is how I'd approach it. Like, I'd make the core body of it, and then what I would do so that you could have the bay, so the door opening, so you'd have like a section cut in. So say your mech's there, and this is the inside of your egg-shaped dropship or whatever. We'll do that. So you can have your bay, but if you just have that, so that's just a square. So if you cut in and recess that square there, and then make it look like an airlock. So there's an airlock behind it, and then there's where the bay door comes down. You could do that, and then that would be a cheeky way of doing it without having to do the whole thing in detail, if you get me. So like you'd actually probably do something about this size, or maybe a little smaller. And then literally build it as a sub-assembly and just countersink it in. And then it will look sweet, because then you'd give that sort of perception of, it's deeper than it actually is. What can I say? The dropship in the last Kickstarter was a map scale fortress. There was two. There was the map scale fortress, and I think there was the leopard. And anyone who got the map scale fortress, there was a lot of complaints that I saw about the map scale fortress, so I wasn't too heartbroken that I didn't buy one, because the way it's cast, there's a lot of work that needs to be put into it to actually get it to work, to fit together. So it's basically cast in two semicircles, and then trying to get those to line up correctly required a lot of work and a lot of effort. Like I'll be honest, like, looking at resin kits and the standard that we have today, it seemed like piss poor quality in my eyes. It seemed like a kit back in the 90s, and then still having that sort of expectation of people having to scratch build or like change the miniature a fair bit to actually get it to sit flush together. Whereas I think like today's markets, the expectations that people have is when you buy a kit, it should fit together pretty easily. Like the days of like garage kits that need some like modification to actually get them to fit together, I think that's like long gone. So I can understand why people were disappointed. Their sort of expectations of buying a kit for a certain amount of money, and then for that kit to actually fit together, That's why they're replacing the resin with plastics. Yeah, it makes sense, because that in my eyes, like, that day and age is gone now. When people buy a kit, it should fit together. They shouldn't have to go out and buy a Dremel and then have to hack away at it for hours upon end to actually get the thing to fit together. You know what I mean? I think that expectation is a bit much. But, they're changing with the times, so there's that. It's good. And if it's plastic miniatures now, they'll be a lot easier to get modifications on and stuff like that. Now, resin kits, trying to chop and change resin kits can be a bit of a pain, especially if they're old school solid ones. But if they're doing the ones in plastic now, we'll see lots of them. We'll see people doing crazy conversions with them, some interesting bits and pieces, and they'll be more common as well, because they'll be easier to get a hold of, and they won't cost an arm and a leg. And with that, I think we're going to call it a night. Apologies about the lack of a heads up in regards to announcing the stream, but we're going to keep on keeping on when it comes to these streams. We're going to keep plugging away. I'm going to look for that paint that I've misplaced, and I'm going to try and finish off the rest of these guys, this unit that I started painting, and we'll crack on and get them finished the next time we're up on the stream. So I won't do a stream next Sunday. We'll do one 2 weeks from now. I am going to a tournament in Limerick next Sunday. So I will be absolutely wrecked. I'm going to help run it. So if anyone's knocking around in Norland, Conclave down in Limerick, down in Thomond Park, the Sunday is the Battletech tournament. That is going to be the regional tournament down there. So cheers for tuning in, folks. And we'll catch you next time. So 2 weeks from now, not next Sunday, Sunday after, there'll be another stream. and hopefully I'll catch you then. So take it easy, guys. I hope he's got a lot painted, and we'll see you then.